Chosen one, if you are reading this right now, it's no coincidence. Heaven has interrupted your plans, your timeline, and your ordinary path to bring you to this very moment. This is not just a random scroll or a passing moment in your day. This is a divine call, a heavenly intervention designed to capture your attention. There is a reason you've been led here. God Himself has orchestrated this. He is pulling you from the distractions of life and positioning you to receive a message that cannot wait, one that is urgent and powerful. You are here because God wants to protect you from something that threatens your destiny. Understand this with every part of your being. This message is not a mere suggestion, but a crucial warning from the throne room of heaven. It is not an accident that you have come across these words. You are being called to pay attention because there is a divine purpose in this moment. Heaven has seen something you cannot yet see, and God is intervening, guiding you away from a dangerous path. He is not here to hinder your progress, but to ensure your protection. What lies ahead may appear inviting, even promising, but not every door that opens is meant for you, and not every opportunity is aligned with your divine destiny. In fact, there is something before you that may look familiar, comfortable, or even blessed. But behind that appearance lies a trap, one designed to pull you backward, drain your spirit, and divert you from the purpose you were created for. This is not a matter of fear. It is a matter of survival, of direction, and of staying aligned with your true calling. God is stepping in right now, warning you to pause, to discern, and to avoid what may seem harmless, but is in fact set to derail you. Know this, God's intervention is His protection. He sees what you cannot see and is preventing you from stepping into something that would lead to your downfall. This is not about restriction. It is about divine care and love. What may look like an opportunity is in truth a trap set against you, but God is guarding your steps, guiding you toward what truly aligns with your purpose and your destiny. The enemy's greatest weapon is not fear, nor is it the blatant threats that we often imagine. Instead, his most insidious tactic is deception, an art form he has perfected over millennia. He is a master of disguise, crafting traps so subtle, so alluring that they appear almost divine. The enemy knows that to capture the chosen ones, he must not show himself as a roaring beast or a monstrous adversary. No, he takes a different approach. He wraps his traps in the very things you desire most. He dresses them in the clothes of comfort, familiarity, and attraction. The allure of these traps is not in their obvious danger, but in their seductive, almost gentle appeal. The enemy knows that he cannot drag you into sin with fear alone. Instead, he uses the soft whispers of promises fulfilled, of desires sated, of dreams fulfilled. He understands that the chosen ones are not easily swayed by outright lies. They are discerning, they are spiritually alert, and they are committed to walking in divine truth. So instead of presenting his traps as dangerous, he packages them in ways that look and feel good, even godly. This is where the danger lies. What seems like a blessing may not always be one. This is the deceptive nature of the traps laid before you. Scripture has warned us of this strategy. In 2 Corinthians 11:14, Paul reminds us that Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. He is not the dark figure we expect, lurking in the shadows, ready to strike. No, the devil is far more strategic than that. He presents himself as an angel of light, a figure that exudes righteousness, purity, and even godliness. This is the trap's greatest power. It doesn't appear as something to fear. It looks good. It feels good. It aligns with your emotions, your desires, and your hopes. But it is precisely this camouflage that makes it so dangerous. Imagine standing at a crossroads in your life, a pivotal moment when a choice must be made. There is an open door ahead,
one that seems inviting, promising, almost like it was custom designed just for you. You may feel peace, excitement, and a sense of destiny as you stand before this opportunity. But the real question is this truly a divine opportunity? Or is it a trap clothed in divine attire? Not every door that opens is one you should walk through. Not every invitation that beckons you forward comes from God. The enemy's tactic is to make you believe that the door opening in front of you is a blessing from heaven, when in reality, it is a carefully crafted snare designed to pull you away from your true purpose. The invitation may seem to align with your desires, and the opportunity may seem like the fulfillment of your prayers, but in truth, it is a distraction, a detour designed to divert your attention from the path God has set before you. In these moments, God's warnings are vital. His voice is the one that calls out from the wilderness, urging you to pause, to take a step back, and to discern what is truly in front of you. Not everything that feels right is right. Not every door that opens is from God. Not every invitation is safe. The enemy has the ability to make what seems right appear even more desirable. But God, in His infinite wisdom, knows what is truly aligned with your calling and your destiny. The understanding of the trap means recognizing that the enemy's strategy is to manipulate your desires, to use them against you. He knows what you long for, what you are seeking, and he uses these longings to draw you into his trap. The wrong people, the wrong opportunities, the wrong environments, they may all appear to be perfect fits, but they are designed with one goal in mind: to drain you, to weaken you, to distract you from your true purpose, and, in the worst case, to completely derail you from the divine path that God has set before you.
In these moments, it is crucial to use the spiritual discernment that God has given you. Discernment allows you to see beyond the surface, to recognize the spirit behind the smile, the hidden motives beneath the offer. The enemy's greatest tool is disguise. He cloaks his traps in familiar, comfortable situations that look like answers to your prayers. But if you are spiritually alert, you will begin to see the cracks in the facade, the hidden dangers behind the allure. Your discernment will begin to rise in these moments. You will feel an unease in your spirit that doesn't make sense on the surface, a hesitation that seems out of place. That unease is God's voice, urging you to pause and consider what is truly before you. It is in these moments that you must trust what you feel in your spirit more than what you see with your eyes. God is not trying to stop your progress. He is trying to preserve your purpose. What appears to be the right path may be a detour designed to sidetrack you from the destiny that God has planned for you. The wrong people will show up at the wrong time, promising you the support and love you desire. But these relationships, though seemingly perfect, are designed to capture your weaknesses. They will drain your energy, your focus, and your peace. The wrong environments may feel comfortable, even safe, but they will suffocate your growth, limiting your potential and keeping you from stepping into the fullness of your calling. The wrong opportunities will present themselves as the answers to your prayers, but they will lead you down a path of distraction, preventing you from pursuing the true purpose God has for you. God is stepping in, chosen one, because He sees what you cannot see. He is revealing what your emotions may not want to acknowledge, what your desires may have overlooked. He is not stopping you because He wants to limit your potential, but because He wants to protect your future. His voice, His warnings are not to punish you, but to guide you away from harm. Trust in His discernment, for He sees beyond the surface. He sees the traps that are hidden in plain sight. What looks right may not be right. What feels safe may not be safe. The enemy is setting a trap for you, but with God's guidance, you will escape it. You are standing at the threshold of something crucial, something that could either propel you toward your divine calling or pull you into a detour that will delay your destiny. There's a quiet stirring in your spirit, an unease that you can't quite place. It's as though the world around you is filled with opportunities, yet something within you is telling you to wait, to pause, to reconsider.
It's not fear, it's a sense of caution, a spiritual alarm that refuses to be ignored. This, my friend, is the rising of your discernment. God is actively intervening in your life, not to slow you down out of punishment, but to preserve you for something greater. You might not fully understand why He's causing your plans to shift, why certain doors are closing, or why He's interrupting your progress. But know this, every interruption is a divine redirection. God, in His infinite wisdom, sees what you cannot see. He understands the dangers lurking ahead, those you are too close to recognize, and He is stepping in with an act of grace. It is in these moments of uncertainty that your discernment rises, the ability to sense God's leading even when it's counterintuitive to your emotions and desires. At the core of the struggle is the clash between desire and discernment. It's a tension that we all face, wanting something so badly, feeling it's the answer to our prayers, but not recognizing the potential harm it could bring. Desire is a powerful force. It drives us toward dreams, goals, and aspirations, but without discernment, desire can blind us. It becomes a door to danger, a path that looks fulfilling on the surface but leads to destruction. When desire is not guided by discernment, it leads to choices that satisfy the flesh in the short term but ultimately drain the spirit. This is why God calls you to choose discernment over desire, wisdom over impulse. You may feel drawn to something or someone that seems so right, so perfectly aligned with your vision, but in your heart, you know something isn't quite right. It's in these moments that you must choose to trust the whisper of the Holy Spirit over the pull of your own desires. God understands the depth of your longings. He created those desires within you. But He also knows that desires, untamed and unexamined, can lead you astray. This is why He gives you the gift of discernment, a spiritual radar that helps you see beyond the surface and into the true nature of things. It's that quiet unease you feel when something isn't right, even if everything on the outside appears perfect. This gift of discernment isn't a punishment, it's a preservation of your soul. God is not denying you, He's protecting you. He's guarding your heart from the counterfeit, the distractions, and the dangers that would rob you of your future. When God holds you back, it is not because He is against you, it is because He is for you. God's restraint is not a form of rejection, it's divine protection, a shield that keeps you from paths you are not yet prepared to walk. It's easy to become frustrated when things don't go according to plan, when doors close, or when progress seems to slow down. But the truth is, God is often working in the unseen, preventing things from coming together until your heart is fully aligned with His will. God knows the weight of your destiny, the magnitude of the calling on your life. He knows that certain situations, relationships, or opportunities could derail your path if entered too soon. In His infinite wisdom, He withholds or delays the things that would harm you, whether through an open door that's really a trap or an invitation that hides manipulation. It may look like you're being limited, but in truth, God is positioning you for His perfect timing. Your purpose is too important to be rushed. The road ahead may be long, but every delay, every moment of pause is preparing you for something greater than you can imagine. Psalm 121 verse 7 offers us a profound reminder of God's protective nature. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. This declaration is not merely a statement of God's power, but a promise of His provision and protection in every area of our lives. Preservation means God not only prevents harm you cannot see, but also keeps you from walking into rooms, relationships, and situations that are not meant for you. His preservation is an act of love, not restriction. David understood this deeply. In the midst of his trials, he could confidently declare in Psalm 121 verse 7 that God would preserve his soul. David had faced enemies, betrayal, and countless challenges, yet he recognized that his survival wasn't just about his strength or ability. It was about God's protection. Every obstacle he faced, every moment of adversity was ultimately under the watchful eye of the divine preserver. God was actively protecting David, not just from immediate harm, but from potential pitfalls that could have completely derailed his destiny. David's journey wasn't a straightforward path. He was anointed as king, but did not step into that role immediately. Instead, he faced years of hardship, running from Saul, fighting battles, and experiencing loss. Yet through all of this, he trusted that God was preserving him. He knew that the delays weren't setbacks, they were God's way of preparing him for what was to come. The same principle applies to your life, chosen one. Every challenge, every delay, and every no from God is not a sign of failure, but a confirmation that God is actively working behind the scenes to align you with your purpose. His preservation is meant to keep you safe from the dangers you cannot yet see, from opportunities that would have drained you, and from relationships that would have stifled your growth.
When God says, "Not yet," He is not denying you. He is preparing you for something far better. He is giving you time to grow, to heal, to develop the strength and wisdom you need to walk into your destiny. And when He says no, He is not rejecting you. He is protecting you from something that would have been spiritually dangerous. It's crucial to understand that God's delays are never meant to punish you. In fact, they are often the very thing that positions you for future success. The enemy might try to convince you that God is withholding your breakthrough, that your dreams are being delayed because of some flaw in you. But in reality, God's timing is always perfect. He knows when you are ready, and He will not allow you to step into something that could harm you or your purpose before your time. Consider how God carefully prepared His chosen people for their promises. The Israelites were delivered from Egypt, but God didn't take them directly into the Promised Land. Instead, He led them on a circuitous route through the wilderness. Why? Because they weren't ready. They needed to be spiritually refined, to trust God more deeply, and to learn reliance on Him. Their delay was not punishment, it was preparation. In the same way, God is preparing you for the fullness of your calling, and the pauses in your life are part of His perfect plan. His preservation means He is actively guarding your path, ensuring that nothing detours you from your divine destiny. God knows that the doors you might want to walk through right now could lead to destruction or frustration if you enter them before you are ready. So He protects you by shutting those doors, not as an act of rejection, but as an act of divine love. In these moments, the key is to trust the process. Discernment allows you to see the divine timing at work. The more you trust God's preservation, the more you can rest in the assurance that He is leading you exactly where you need to go. Your desires might tempt you to rush ahead, to force open the doors that have been shut. But remember, God's no is always for your good. It is His way of preserving you for something greater, something that aligns with your calling and purpose. Trust in God's perfect plan and His perfect timing, and remember that every delay, every detour, and every closed door is part of the process that will lead you into the fullness of your destiny. Trust that God is working in you even when it feels like things are at a standstill. You are not being overlooked. You are not being forgotten. You are being preserved, positioned, and prepared for the amazing things that lie ahead. The process may not always be comfortable, but it is always purposeful. So rise up, chosen one, and trust in God's protection. He is not limiting you. He is setting you up for success, guarding your path, and guiding you with His divine wisdom. Your destiny is secure in His hands, and He is walking you into it at the perfect moment. There's a deep, unwavering truth that often takes time to fully embrace. When God says no, it's not a denial of your desires, but a declaration of His love and protection.
It's easy to perceive God's no as a rejection, especially when the door that seems to open ahead appears promising. Our human hearts, with all their longings and ambitions, often interpret any divine restraint as something personal, a failure, a missed opportunity, a path unfulfilled. But what if God's no was in fact a divine redirect, a shield protecting you from a danger you couldn't see? What if that moment when God holds you back is instead of a denial, an act of love that's keeping you in alignment with His perfect plan for your life? When God says no, He isn't rejecting you or your desires. He's loving you in ways that might not be immediately clear. It's easy to get lost in the disappointment of the moment, but the reality is that God's no is a protective embrace. It's the loving intervention of a father who sees the entire picture, knows the future, and holds your destiny in His hands. That closed door, it's a shield, not a burden. That unanswered prayer, it's a divine alignment, positioning you for something better than you could ever imagine. The Israelites in the wilderness. One of the most profound lessons we can draw from Scripture is the story of the Israelites' journey through the wilderness. God's decision to lead His people on a longer, more circuitous route rather than the shorter path to the Promised Land may have seemed like a cruel detour at the time. After all, they were free from Egypt and they could have entered the land of milk and honey in just a few days. But instead, God led them into the wilderness, where they would wander for 40 years. At first glance, it might have seemed like a delay or a punishment. They were in a hurry to reach their promised destination, and the wilderness seemed like the very antithesis of that promise. Yet when we look deeper, we begin to understand why God did this. The shorter path through the Philistine territory was not the best option for the Israelites at that moment. God knew that if they faced the immediate threat of war, they would have turned back to Egypt. Their faith was still weak, their hearts still tethered to their past of slavery, and they were not spiritually prepared for the battles that lay ahead. By leading them on a longer path, God was refining them. The wilderness was a classroom where their dependence on God would be tested and strengthened. He fed them with manna from heaven, provided water from a rock, and showed him His power and faithfulness. It was not punishment, but preparation. God knew that if they entered the Promised Land too soon, they wouldn't be able to enjoy the full benefit of the blessings He had in store for them. He needed them to grow in their trust, to build their faith, and to understand that He alone was their provider. In the same way, God is preparing you for the fullness of your calling, and the pauses in your life are part of His perfect plan. In a saturation of meaningful promises, God stands before you, not merely as a giver, but as a provider and as a protector of your destiny. When God says no, you must accept it as a protection. This means seeing His refusal not as a barrier to your happiness, but as a divine shield against potential harm or derailment. Only God knows the future, and He alone can see the perils that lie beyond the veil of the present. This protection is not an act of rejection, but a deep expression of His love. Consider the Israelites in the wilderness. Their journey to the Promised Land could have been shortened had they taken the direct route, but God knew that path was rife with danger. His denial was a divine detour meant to preserve their lives and develop their faith. In the same way, your unanswered prayer might be a divine protection from a danger you can't see. In the moment, it may feel like a setback, but trust me, it's a setup for your greater good. When God says no, you must accept it as a preparer. Sometimes your destiny requires experience, character, and wisdom that you only gain through the process. It's like a training ground where God molds you into the vessel capable of receiving your future blessings. Believe me, God is not interested in giving you premature gifts. He is preparing you for the fullness of your promised destiny.
Mature, inspirational, authoritative delivery. The narrator's tone is low, clear, so deep, and highly emotive, establishing a sense of spiritual authority and credibility in normal but a little fast speed. The voice sounds like the God talking. Even the Apostle Paul, one of the most influential figures in the early church, experienced divine restraint. Paul's missionary journey was filled with passion and purpose, yet there were moments when God blocked Paul's plans, redirecting him to other places. One notable instance occurred during Paul's second missionary journey when he was planning to preach the gospel in the province of Asia. But Scripture tells us in Acts 16:6-7 that the Holy Spirit prevented Paul and his companions from preaching in Asia and later guided them to Macedonia instead. At first, it may have seemed like a frustrating delay. Paul had a burning desire to spread the gospel in Asia, but God had other plans. The no was not a hindrance to Paul's mission, it was a divine redirection. By obeying the restraint, Paul was led to Macedonia, where he began preaching the gospel to the first European converts. God's redirection not only saved Paul from a less fruitful path, but opened up a whole new chapter in the expansion of the early church. Paul's obedience to God's no paved the way for one of the most significant movements in history, the gospel reaching Europe. What seemed like a delay was actually the beginning of a new, more impactful direction. In each of these examples, we see that God's no was not rejection, it was redirection, preservation, and protection. God sees the bigger picture, the opportunities that lie ahead, the dangers lurking in the shadows, and the moments when we are not yet prepared for the blessings that He has in store. When God says no, He is guiding us, teaching us to trust in His timing, His wisdom, and His perfect plan for our lives. God's no might be difficult to understand in the moment, but it is always for our good. It is His way of protecting us from dangers we cannot see, from paths we are not yet ready to walk, and from opportunities that would drain our spirit or pull us away from our true purpose. His love is woven into every no, just as His protection is embedded in every delay. Trust that when God says no, He is preserving your future, safeguarding your purpose, and keeping you on the path that leads to your divine destiny. His no is not a rejection, it is a shield, a divine protection that will guide you towards something far greater than what you could ever imagine. The enemy is no fool. His strategy is as ancient as humanity itself, and it is far from arbitrary. He knows that the path to your destruction is not through overt force or open conflict. Instead, the enemy sets his traps carefully, skillfully, and most often they are masked under the guise of something appealing, promising, and seemingly harmless. These traps are designed not to repel, but to attract, not to warn, but to lure, seducing you into a false sense of security. The enemy's traps are not placed in the darkness where they can easily be avoided, but right in front of you, often wrapped in what feels like a divine blessing, a desirable opportunity, or a perfect relationship. But what appears good on the surface is often spiritually toxic beneath, leading to a slow unraveling of your purpose, peace, and destiny. It is critical to recognize that these traps don't always look evil. In fact, they often appear to be the answer to your prayers, the very thing you've longed for, the promise of success, fulfillment, and peace.
However, these enticing paths often lead straight into the enemy's snares, hidden in plain sight. The real danger lies not in the obvious pitfalls, but in those that appear right, but lead to destruction. One of the enemy's most effective tactics is to disguise the very things that could derail your life as blessings. Imagine being presented with an opportunity so alluring, so perfect in every way, that you feel an almost irresistible pull to take hold of it. But what you can't see, what is hidden from your natural sight, is the snare within it. This is how the enemy works, by presenting you with things that seem good, but will ultimately drain your spirit, weaken your faith, and lead you far from God's purpose for your life. The key to avoiding these traps is discernment. It's not enough to simply follow your feelings or desires. You must align your decisions with God's will. You must take time to listen to His voice, tune into His warnings, and trust that His no is as protective as His yes. The enemy presents these traps because he knows how much value God has placed on your destiny, and he will do everything it takes to distort or derail that destiny. Let's explore some of the most common traps the enemy lays before us. These traps often appear harmless, and many even come as disguised as desirable and beneficial. But each of these spiritual traps has the power to lead you off course and take you far from your true calling. Proverbs is filled with warnings about the dangers of sexual immorality. In fact, much of the book is dedicated to the importance of guarding one's heart and mind from the deceptive allure of lust. Lust, while often masquerading as passion or love, is one of the enemy's most dangerous traps. It promises fleeting pleasure, but leaves behind a trail of emotional, spiritual, and relational destruction. What seems exciting in the moment becomes a prison of shame, regret, and loss. The enemy uses sexual immorality as a way to weaken your spirit, distract you from your purpose, and steal your peace. In Proverbs 7:21-23, the enemy's tactics are laid bare. With persuasive words, she led him astray. She seduced him with her smooth talk. All at once, he followed her like an ox going to the slaughter, like a deer stepping into a noose. What begins as an enticing path to temporary pleasure can quickly spiral into a destructive force that cuts off your connection to God's voice, suffocates your spiritual growth, and leaves you broken and defeated. This trap is especially insidious because it preys on basic human desires and turns them into an idol. When we allow lust to take control of our lives, it clouds our judgment, pulls us into cycles of sin, and keeps us from the deeper intimacy God desires with us. It's important to remember that true intimacy and love are found in God's design, not in counterfeit pleasures that the enemy presents. Another trap the enemy sets is materialism, the desire for wealth, possessions, and status. In 1 Timothy 6:9-10, Paul warns, "Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is the root of all evil." The enemy uses materialism to subtly shift your focus from God's purpose for your life to the pursuit of worldly gain. At first, it seems harmless, wanting to provide for yourself and your family, desiring success, and striving for a better life. But when the pursuit of wealth becomes the central focus of your life, it becomes a trap that consumes you. It steals your joy, your peace, and your sense of purpose. The enemy wants you to believe that your identity is found in what you possess, and he lures you into thinking that more will always be the answer to your discontent. But the reality is that wealth, possessions, and status never truly satisfy. The more you gain, the more you want. The more you have, the more empty you feel. The enemy knows this, and he uses materialism to pull you away from the only true source of fulfillment, God. Pride is another devastating trap the enemy sets for the chosen. Proverbs 16:18 says, "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall." Pride whispers to us that we can handle things on our own, that we don't need anyone, especially God, to guide us. It convinces us that we are in control, that we don't need to rely on anyone else, and that our success is a product of our own strength and wisdom. The enemy uses pride to build walls around our hearts and minds, making us resistant to God's guidance, direction, and correction. Pride is one of the most subtle traps because it often masquerades as confidence or self-assurance. While confidence can be a good thing when rooted in God, pride twists it into self-sufficiency. Pride leads to arrogance, isolation, and spiritual blindness. It convinces us that we know better than anyone else, including God, and this attitude can destroy relationships, ministries, and destinies. The trap of pride often appears harmless because it feels empowering, but ultimately it isolates.
One of the enemy's greatest tools is his ability to present counterfeits. The devil is a master of deception, and he knows how to make something that is fake look real. Whether it's a relationship, an opportunity, or a blessing, the enemy will present you with a counterfeit that appears almost identical to the real thing. The only difference is that the counterfeit will lead you down a path of destruction. Think about counterfeit relationships. The enemy will present someone who seems kind, loving, and perfect for you, but deep down, their motives are rooted in manipulation, selfishness, and destruction. The same goes for counterfeit opportunities. You may find yourself faced with an opportunity that seems like the answer to your prayers, but the truth is, it will drain your energy, compromise your integrity, and pull you away from God's purpose. These counterfeits are particularly dangerous because they look so much like the real thing. The enemy disguises the false as something genuine, knowing that our desire for what's good will often lead us to choose what's easy, convenient, or appealing, even if it's not aligned with God's will. This is why discernment is so crucial. Without it, we can easily fall for the enemy's traps. We must be vigilant, test the spirits, and seek God's wisdom in every decision. The most powerful weapon you have against these traps is discernment. Discernment is the ability to see beyond the surface and recognize the true nature of things. It's not about judging based on appearances or emotions, but about seeking God's perspective on every situation, every relationship, and every opportunity. Discernment helps you recognize the counterfeit before it entangles you. It gives you the spiritual clarity to discern the enemy's lies from God's truth. God wants to help you develop this gift of discernment, but it requires time, patience, and trust. It requires you to surrender your emotions and desires to Him, allowing Him to lead you into His perfect will. When you rely on God's guidance, you will be able to avoid the traps that the enemy sets for you, and instead walk confidently in the path He has designed for your life. Discernment is one of the most precious gifts that God imparts to His chosen ones. It is a divine sense, a heightened awareness, a spiritual radar that helps you perceive the world not just through physical eyes, but through the lens of God's truth. As you walk deeper in your journey of faith, God elevates your spiritual senses, opening your eyes to see beyond the surface and perceive the spiritual realities that others might miss. It is through discernment that you can identify the hidden dangers lying just beneath the surface of life's seemingly harmless paths. And it is through discernment that you are able to steer clear of the traps the enemy so strategically sets to distract and derail you from your purpose.
In a world that bombards us with distractions and deceptions, discernment is a weapon that allows you to cut through the noise and focus on what truly matters. It is more than simply making good decisions. Discernment is a supernatural gift that aligns your heart with God's heart, enabling you to walk in wisdom, peace, and confidence. With discernment, you begin to see through the counterfeit and the superficial, recognizing what is aligned with God's will and what is meant to pull you off course. What does it mean to discern? In its essence, discernment is the ability to perceive the true nature of things, especially when they are veiled behind deceit or appearance. It's seeing beyond the surface and recognizing the spiritual reality of a situation. The world may offer you opportunities that appear perfect, relationships that seem ideal, or paths that appear to be divinely aligned with your purpose, but discernment allows you to see what others cannot. It enables you to ask the deeper questions, to probe beneath the surface, and to test everything before you make a decision. God elevates your discernment not just to protect you from immediate harm, but to keep you aligned with your divine purpose. He knows that the enemy's traps are not always obvious, and that's why he sharpens your spiritual sensitivity. What seems to be a great opportunity could be a carefully disguised distraction. What feels like a peaceful relationship could be a chain that holds you back from your destiny. Discernment helps you see what is not readily visible, and in doing so, it becomes a vital tool in your spiritual defense. As you grow in discernment, God's voice becomes clearer. You start to recognize His whispers in your spirit, His promptings in your heart, and His direction in your life. It's not about walking in fear or suspicion of everything around you. Discernment is not a product of fear. It is the fruit of spiritual intelligence. It is the ability to sense danger, not because you are afraid, but because you trust God's ability to guide you. It is the wisdom to recognize a good opportunity that is not in alignment with God's will, and the strength to walk away from it. It is the confidence to know that God will protect you from the enemy's traps and lead you to what is best for your life. As you grow in discernment, you begin to understand that it is not about being fearful or suspicious of everything around you. Discernment is not a product of fear. It is the fruit of spiritual intelligence. It is the ability to sense danger, not because you are afraid, but because you trust God's ability to guide you. It is the wisdom to recognize a good opportunity that is not in alignment with God's will, and the strength to walk away from it. It is the confidence to know that God will protect you from the enemy's traps and lead you to what is best for your life. One of the clearest signs that something is not right is a profound lack of peace in your spirit. Peace is a precious gift from God, and when it is absent, it is a warning. You may find yourself uneasy, unsettled, or anxious about a decision or situation, even if everything looks fine on the outside. This lack of peace is God's way of signaling that something is amiss, even if you can't immediately put your finger on it. When you experience this inner turmoil, take a step back and seek God's guidance. Trust that His peace will lead you into His will, and His absence of peace is a red flag meant to steer you away from danger. Another common sign that something is out of alignment is constant confusion or emotional instability. When your emotions are in constant turmoil, it could be a sign that the enemy is trying to lead you off course with distractions or deceptions. God's guidance is not meant to confuse you. It brings clarity, peace, and confidence. If you find yourself overwhelmed with confusion, indecision, or emotional highs and lows, it's time to pause and ask God for clarity. He promises that when you seek wisdom, He will provide it generously. James 1:5. Trust that the confusion you feel is not from God and rely on His guidance to cut through it. Sometimes God's discernment shows up as a sudden hesitation in your heart. You may feel prompted to move forward in a situation, yet something in your spirit causes you to pause. This hesitation is often a quiet warning to slow down and reconsider your options.
It may feel like a gut instinct or a subtle unease, but it's God's way of steering you away from something that isn't in alignment with His will. Trust this hesitation. It's not a weakness or a lack of faith. It's a sign of spiritual maturity and a willingness to be led by the Holy Spirit. Another powerful sign of God's redirection is when doors begin to close and you are unable to open them, no matter how hard you try. In the past, you may have been able to force opportunities to work through sheer determination, but now, despite your best efforts, the doors remain shut. This is not a sign of failure, it is a sign of God's protection. He is closing doors to prevent you from walking into situations that could harm your purpose or derail your destiny. Trust that God's closed doors are just as important as the open ones. He is leading you down a better path, and these closed doors are part of His divine protection over your life.
Mature, inspirational, authoritative delivery. The narrator's tone is low, clear, so deep and highly emotive, establishing a sense of spiritual authority and credibility. In normal, but a little fast speed, the voice sounds like the God talking. The enemy would love for you to live in fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of making mistakes, fear of missing out. But God's discernment is different. It helps you navigate life with clarity, confidence, and peace. It doesn't paralyze you with indecision. It empowers you to make choices that align with your purpose and calling. Discernment is your defense against the enemy's deception and distractions. It helps you recognize the counterfeit and the false, enabling you to walk in the truth that God has laid before you. One of the greatest gifts of discernment is the ability to trust God's redirection in your life. You may not always understand why certain doors close or why your plans are interrupted, but God's discernment helps you trust that His hand is at work behind the scenes. When He redirects your steps, He is positioning you for something better. It's important to remember that God's guidance isn't always immediate. Sometimes it's a gentle nudge, a soft whisper in your spirit, telling you to wait or move in a different direction. God doesn't make mistakes, and He is never uncertain about your future. Even when things seem unclear, trust that He is leading you with perfect wisdom and love. The enemy may try to convince you that you are being held back, but in reality, God is preparing you for something greater. Trust His timing, trust His guidance, trust His protection. God's redirection is not a setback, it is a step forward in His divine plan for your life. As you walk in discernment, remember that it is not a one-time event, but a lifelong process. It is something that deepens as you grow in faith and relationship with God. It is a journey of trusting God, learning His voice, and allowing His wisdom to shape every decision you make. Discernment isn't just about avoiding the enemy's traps. It's about walking in the fullness of God's will for your life, fully aligned with His purpose and equipped to handle whatever comes your way. The enemy will always try to distract, deceive, and derail you. But with discernment, you will recognize his tactics before they even have a chance to root in your life. You will walk confidently in the path God has set before you, fully equipped with the spiritual intelligence to see beyond the surface and the peace to know that God is always with you, guiding you and protecting you. As you continue to grow in discernment, you will find that life becomes clearer, your decisions become more aligned with God's will, and your purpose becomes more defined. Trust in the process, trust in the journey, and above all, trust in the one who is guiding you every step of the way. There's a divine rhythm to life that often eludes our understanding. We live in a world that values immediacy, quick results, and instant gratification. But God's ways, His timing,
are far beyond our limited human perception. Trusting God's process is about learning to lean into His wisdom even when we can't see the full picture. It's acknowledging that the pauses, the delays, and even the detours in our lives are part of a grand, unfolding plan that is shaping us for something far greater than we could ever imagine. We often perceive delays as setbacks or even as failures, but in truth, they are some of the most valuable gifts God gives us. It's in the waiting that we grow. It's in the periods of uncertainty that our character is forged and our faith is tested. It's when we feel the pressure to move faster, to grasp what is before us, that God gently whispers, "Wait on me." And in that waiting, we are shaped. God is not withholding good from you. He is refining you, preparing you for what is to come. Patience, a fruit of the Spirit, is not just about waiting. It's about trusting in the timing of the one who holds your future. Patience is an essential tool for your spiritual growth, for it cultivates in you the ability to rely not on your own strength, but on God's perfect plan. God, in His infinite wisdom, knows exactly when to release blessings and when to withhold them. He knows the exact moment when you will be ready for what He has planned for you. When we're asked to wait, to trust, it can feel like we're stuck in a season that never ends, especially when we see others seemingly moving forward or achieving what we desire. But God's timing is impeccable. You may feel like you're standing still, but in reality, God is positioning you for something far more significant. If you rush the process, you risk missing out on the full measure of growth He has planned for you. Trusting His process means trusting that every step is part of a beautiful orchestration that will bring you into the fullness of your calling. Resistance is often the most challenging part of growth, yet it is one of the most crucial. Like the pressure that turns coal into diamonds, it is through resistance that your faith is refined. The delays, the closed doors, and the moments when you feel like giving up are not punishment. They are God's way of protecting you from premature exposure to success, fame, or positions that you're not yet ready for. Think of the seasons in your life when you were desperate for something, a breakthrough, a promotion, a relationship, a dream, and it seemed as though everything you wanted was just out of reach. At the time, it felt like a frustrating block, an unanswered prayer. But what you didn't see was that God, in His mercy, was preventing you from stepping into something that would have derailed you. He was saving you from the dangers of pride, the corrupting influence of fame, or the burden of responsibility you were not yet equipped for. In these moments of resistance, God is building your spiritual muscle, strengthening your character, and teaching you to rely solely on Him. You may not understand it at the time, but when you look back, you'll see how beautifully everything worked together. God knows exactly when to release what you've been praying for, and He will release it at the perfect time. Trust that His delays are not denials. They are divine redirections that are meant for your protection and elevation. In times of uncertainty, when it feels like you're being held back or stuck in a perpetual cycle of waiting, remember the promise of Jeremiah 29:11. God declares, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." Even when you don't see the outcome, even when the road ahead seems long, trust that God's plans for you are good. His delays are not indications of His lack of care. Rather, they are evidence of His deep, abiding love. When God says wait, it's not because He wants to withhold good from you. It's because He is preparing you for something that will bring greater blessing. He's teaching you patience, developing your resilience, and equipping you for the future He has designed for you. Your future, your destiny, is not a random occurrence. God has been planning, orchestrating, and preparing you for it since before you were born. His plans are filled with purpose, hope, and a future full of promise. In those moments when you're uncertain, when the waiting feels unbearable, remember that God sees what you cannot. He knows the full scope of your journey, and He is positioning you perfectly for the destiny He has in mind. Trust that every delay, every moment of waiting is not an obstacle, but an opportunity for growth. God is never wasting time. He is carefully preparing you for your divine calling. And in the fullness of His timing, He will bring everything together in a way that only He can. So what do you do while you wait? You trust. You continue to move forward with faith, knowing that God's timing is perfect. You allow His process to unfold, resisting the urge to force things into place. You grow in patience, in perseverance, and in faith. And most importantly, you hold on to the truth that God's love for you is unshakable. His plans for you are unwavering, and His timing is flawless. The journey may be long, but it is not wasted. Every step you take, even in the waiting, is bringing you closer to the promise He has for you. And when the time comes, when the door opens, when the breakthrough arrives, you will be ready. You will step into your calling with the strength, wisdom, and maturity